What's good, everybody? My name is Sweat. We're back talking fantasy football week 13. I know I missed last week, but I had a few things going on in my life, a couple of birthdays, Thanksgiving, and now we're all getting ready for Christmas. So what I wanted to do moving forward is just kind of give you guys the rundown on who I think might make an impact for a playoff push and in the playoffs. So with that being said, these videos are going to be a bit shorter. I'm going to try and blitz through every team as quickly as possible. You guys already know who are the must starts, and I'm just going to give my 2 cents on who I think can help your team moving forward. Starting off with the Thanksgiving games, first up, Bears and Lions. We already know who the must starts are for the Lions. St. Brown, both running backs, Gibbs, Montgomery. I would start Laporta with confidence, and if you're hurting at the QB position, don't be hesitant to start Jared Goff. As far as the Bears go, I'm not too sure who to start with confidence there because it's like one guy has a good game every week. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet had 1 or 2 good games this year. DeAndre Swift. So if you're hurting at either of those positions, I would just play them, and it is what it is. They might have a big week or they might have a really down week. Moving on to the Giants and Cowboys, you got to start CeeDee Lamb every week. He's too talented to put on your bench. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is. And as far as tight ends go, I would start Jake Ferguson. I know he might be out again this week, but he'll be back in time for the playoffs. And if you're hurting at the RB spot, or if your guys are injured or you're waiting for them to come back, I would go ahead and start Rico Dowdle. As far as the Giants go, I'm not even sure if you can start Malik Neighbors anymore. Drew Lock just ain't it. Tommy DeVito wasn't it. He got hurt. It's tough to say because he started off the season so good, and he's just not doing well anymore. They're not getting him enough targets. Flip a coin. It is what it is. Next up, Dolphins and Packers. The Packers, you know what to do. You got to start Jordan Love. You got to start Josh Jacobs. The receivers are the ones who are tricky. I would keep Christian Watson on your bench for now, or actually all of them on your bench for now, and just kind of wait and see who he favors more. And also, if you do have Tucker Kraft, I would start him as well. He's a good tight end. As far as the Dolphins go, you got to start both their receivers, Hill and Waddle, as well as Devon Achane. But if you happen to pick up Jonnu Smith a couple of weeks ago off the waiver wire, to me, he's a must start every week, and he has a chance to win you your fantasy championship this year. He's been getting more involved in the offense, and he's been scoring touchdowns. Moving on to the Texans and Jaguars, tough hit on Trevor Lawrence. I know he's going to be out for the season, but if you happen to have him at your QB spot and you're looking to pick somebody up off the waiver wire, I would look at Jameis Winston. Look at his numbers. I know he had 2 pick sixes against the Broncos on Monday night, but he had almost 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's been doing very well after he came in for Deshaun Watson about a month ago or 6 weeks ago, whatever it was. But I would definitely consider him moving forward. Back to the Jaguars, they're going to have to rely on Mac Jones for the rest of the year. So I'm not too sure who to start with confidence. The only 2 guys I can think of are Brian Thomas Jr. and Evan Ingram. Their running backs aren't doing very well. Gabe Davis is out. Christian Kirk is obviously out for the season, so start them with caution. And as far as the Texans go, CJ Stroud just ain't looking like he used to, but I would definitely start Collins, Tank Dell, and Joe Mixon moving forward. Next up, Chargers and Falcons. As far as the Chargers go, you got to start J.K. Dobbins every week. I know he's hurt. If you picked up Gus Edwards, I would start him with confidence. And Ladd McConkey has been doing really well these last few weeks, so he's obviously a must start. As far as the Falcons go, the must starts for me are London, Mooney if he's healthy, Pitts. I know he hasn't been doing well these past couple of weeks, but I would still start him, and obviously Bijan. Next up, Tennessee and Washington. Washington got back on track. We already know who their must starters are. Jaden Daniels, Brian Robinson Jr., and Terry McLaurin. And as far as Tennessee goes, I told you I would keep starting Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. No matter if you think it's luck or I'm not too sure how much targets he's getting, but he seems to be scoring a touchdown every single week. And also I would start Tony Pollard. Next up, Cardinals and Vikings. We already know who to start for the Vikings. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones. And keep an eye on TJ Hawkinson. He's still making his way back from injury, but I think he's going to be a threat as far as the fantasy playoffs go. And as far as the Cardinals go, you got to start James Conner, you got to start Marvin Harrison Jr., and I would also start Kyler Murray. Next up, Colts and Patriots. The Colts are kind of tricky to me. Jonathan Taylor's an obvious must start, but when it comes to their receivers, it just depends on how good Anthony Richardson's going to do. We know his accuracy isn't all that, but for me, I'm starting Josh Downs and Michael Pittman every week. And we know the Patriots aren't that good of a team. However, Drake May is doing pretty well for his rookie year. I said this a few weeks back that if I was a Patriots fan, I hate the Patriots, but if I was a Patriots fan, I would be excited to have Drake May as your quarterback moving forward. But the only ones that I would start on this team moving forward is obviously Ramondre Stevenson. And it seems like Hunter Henry might be Drake May's favorite target. So start him with confidence if you have him. Next up, Steelers and Bengals. This game was crazy. They scored over 80 points total. But as far as the Steelers go, I'm starting Russell Wilson with confidence every week, as well as Najee Harris, George Pickens, and even Pat Freiermuth, because Russell Wilson doesn't have the wheels that he used to have, so he's always looking for that safety blanket, and Pat Freiermuth is getting it done. As far as the Bengals go, we know this whole team is a must start. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Chase Brown, Mike Gesicki. You're making me sick. My bad. Next up, Seahawks and Jets. Jets choked again. I'm not surprised. As far as the Seahawks go, I'm starting DK Metcalf, JSN, and Kenneth Walker every week. However, I think Kenneth Walker is injured or he's sick, something like that this week, so keep an eye on him. If you don't already have Zach Charbonnet as a handcuff, get him ASAP. And as far as the Jets go, Breece Hall has not been practicing at all this week. We know he's a must start every week, but if you don't already have his handcuff, Braylon Allen, go and get him right now. And the only other two guys to start on this team are Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson. Next up, Rams and Saints. We know the must-starts for the Rams: Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Kyren Williams. But keep an eye on Tyler Higbee. I know he's barely coming back for the first time this season, but he might have fresh legs. He could get a couple of games under his belt before the playoffs start, or fantasy playoffs, and he could help you win a championship. As far as the Saints go, tough blow. Taysom Hill's out for the season, but the must-starts for me are Alvin Kamara and even Valdez-Scantling. I said his name a couple of weeks ago. His stats don't show very well, 2 catches for 36 yards, but he has been getting a touchdown every week he's been there. So he's only one massive play or one big play away from getting you 12 to 16 points, and I would start him every week. Next up, Bucks and Panthers. Tough break for the Panthers. Looked like they were going to win the game. Gave up a field goal to send it into OT, and then they lost by a field goal. So for me, must starts for the Bucks. Obviously Mike Evans, but it seems like Bucky Irvin has taken over that number 1 spot at the running back position. So he's a must start every week. And I would pick up Sterling Shepard just in case. Keep him on your bench, but he could be legit moving forward. And don't look now, but the Panthers actually have players who are relevant in fantasy football. They just got Adam Thielen back from IR, I believe it was last week, and he had a massive game this week. 8 catches for 99 yards and a touchdown. If you happen to get him off the waiver wire or you held on to him this whole time, start him every week with confidence. And their tight end Tommy Tremble also had a good game. 5 catches for 77 yards. That's Bryce Young's safety blanket right there. I know he looks at Adam Thielen a lot, but Tommy Tremble could help your team out moving forward. And also Chuba Hubbard is obviously a must start every week. Moving on to the Eagles and Ravens. We know both teams are all must starts. For the Eagles, you got to start Hurts, Barkley, AJ Brown. I know Devontae Smith is hurt, but he'll be back in time for the playoffs. You got to start him and Dallas Goedert as well. And we already know about the Ravens. You got to start Lamar, Derrick Henry. Mark Andrews has been doing well these past few weeks. You got to start him, and obviously Zay Flowers as well. Moving on to the Niners and Bills. Tough break for CMC owners. I know you guys were dealing with him all year, and he only came back for what? I think it was 3 games, but that's tough news. But if you were lucky enough to get Isaac Guerrero off the waiver wire like I was, he's a must start every week. And I know Brock Purdy had a bad game this week going up into the snow in Buffalo, but I still think he's a must start every week unless you have a better option at QB. And obviously George Kittle, you got to start him, Jawan Jennings, and Debo. As far as the Bills go, we already know the must starts are Josh Allen, James Cook. To me, I would start Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid when he comes back healthy, and also keep Keon Coleman on your bench until he comes back. We got to see how he does with his wrist injury. but keep him on your bench. He could be valuable going into the playoffs. And on to the Monday night game, Browns and Broncos. This game was more exciting than I thought it was going to be. Jameis Winston really had himself a game. He had almost 500 yards passing. He did throw 3 interceptions and 2 of them for pick sixes, but he still had over 35 points in my fantasy league. So if you're hurting or your quarterback's injured, I would go get him off the waiver wire. And he's definitely getting his main pass catchers involved. Jerry Jeudy had a massive game. 9 catches, 235 yards, and a touchdown. Elijah Moore, 8 catches for 111 yards. And David Njoku, 9 catches for 52 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Tillman's going to be out again this week. So I would start all 3 of those guys. But I am concerned about Nick Chubb. He got the same amount of carries as Jerome Ford, and Jerome Ford had twice the yardage. So I would start him with caution. As far as the Broncos go, Bo Nix had a bit of an off game. He did have 294 yards passing, but he only had 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. But with that being said, I would still start him every week. And the only one I would start at the receiver group is Courtland Sutton. The other guys, it's like they're running backs. They get involved one week, they don't do good the next week. Get involved, not good. So I'm only starting Courtland Sutton. That's going to be it for me this week. One thing that still does irk me is that my team had the high score this week. I had 177 points, and I know that they're capable of doing that every week, but I just wasn't able to get it done. So it is what it is. I'm still going to try and spoil it for the rest of or for these next 2 guys, my opponents that are coming up. Maybe I can bump them out of the playoffs, but we'll see what happens. Good luck to you guys this week, and go Bills.